good morning. Hello, good morning. Common courtesy. What we expect and what we all deserve. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here this morning. You know, as I do, I'll start with some preliminary updates and then go right into questions and answers. And so with that, if you'll just give me a minute. I'm going to start with public safety, much like I always do from week to week. And as looking at preliminary data, always from the New Orleans Police Department, the week of April 30th through May the 6th, compared to the week prior to, just continues to see fewer crimes against persons marked by less homicides, sexual assaults, and non-fatal shooting incidents and victims compared to the last week. Year-to-date stats using, again, preliminary data from the New Orleans Police Department through May 6th compared to 2023-22 continue again to show progress. Armed robberies down 18%, carjackings 46%, non-fatal shooting incidents are down 12%, non-fatal shooting victims are down 9%, homicides are down 18%, total crimes against persons are down 17%. Doesn't mean that we haven't seen violent incidents in our city, no doubt about that. We have been very much engaged as well as aggressive as it relates to enforcement and deployment practices. But what we also are seeing, too much crime in the city of New Orleans is not random at all. It's not by chance. It is intentional, and it is targeted. This is what we continue to see. But what it also means is that, hey, enough is enough in the city of New Orleans. Senseless acts of violence have plagued our community for far too long, and we can do something about it collectively. Put the guns down. What we see that hurt people continue to hurt people in the city of New Orleans, and as a result of that, we're all hurt by it and from it. Again, this endless cycle of losing our sons and daughters to senseless violence in our community is again proof that we have to put these guns down and we can collectively do something about it. The New Orleans Police Department continues to produce solid record investigative practices, investigations that bring solid arrests. I will say a big thank you to, as we've requested additional manpower help from our U.S. Marshals, it's again proving to be very effective being embedded within the New Orleans Police Department and our Specialized Ops unit and division that has been doing great work on the streets of our city. It's a U.S. Marshal Gulf Coast Violent Offender Fugitive Task Force of Houston, again, along with our New Orleans Police Department Violent Offender Warrant Squad, and our U.S. Marshal New Orleans Task Force. Just bringing these arrests, making solid arrests. Very key, and I know that's not only dear and near to my heart, but that of what happened over at Mandinas. Solid arrest there. That individual is en route, will be extradited to the city of New Orleans to be booked into our OJC on charges of second-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, and aggravated battery. Solid work, New Orleans Police Department. Also on Monday, NOPD Special Ops, our SWAT team, arrested Larry Davis in connection, again, with the homicide over at Willie Mays Scotch House. Booked with second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and bond set at $850,000 on Tuesday. Again, solid arrests and swift action by our New Orleans Police Department and support of agencies that we have really asked to come assist us with making these key arrests. Switching now to our juvenile justice intervention center, and particularly juvenile justice. I touched this last week and even the week before, and just wanted to continue with the focus here. As I mentioned on last week, the April 27th meeting that was scheduled by Commissioner Stevens with our juvenile court judges and partners, collectively it was held. However, we did not get the turnout that we anticipated by our juvenile court judges. We did have Judge Clint Smith there, along with, of course, our Superintendent Woodfork, Director Deshelle Williams of the JJIC, Executive Director of our Evening Reporting Centers, as well as representatives from the DA's office and other stakeholders were present. A huge thank you to all who did participate, and also those who will be participating in the meeting that is scheduled for this Friday, May the 12th. We have been receiving, I would say, greater cooperation from our juvenile court judges, and as a result, they've scheduled this meeting again on Friday, May 12th, when a court is not in session. And we know that we can simply, we can't arrest or detain or imprison our way out of this problem that we're having, but at the end of the day, accountability does breed accountability, breeds accountability. So we have a responsibility and a duty to our young people and this community to hold everyone accountable, and we will do that. As well as, again, work holistically with our families as it relates to violence, where it occurs and when it occurs. Also, I just wanted to mention, talked about the ankle monitors. This is something that we're continuing to focus on. This will be heavily discussed on this Friday. I do know that. And just looking for, again, some resolve there. As it stands now, ankle monitors are not tracked in real time, and actually the reporting is every 2 weeks. So that's something that is concerning for me, concerning for my team, and will be front and center as it relates to discussions again on this Friday, along with other important measures. Wanted to switch now to Jazz Fest. Jazz Fest, folks had a great time. It was a fun, friendly, successful Jazz Fest for the city of New Orleans. Even despite weather and some bouts with violent crime. The forecast as it relates to hotel occupancy numbers for both weekends just show that we had more visitors than the previous year. We're on a path, a solid track record here in the city. And this is something we should be proud of. What we are also seeing, that we are trending again in the right direction in terms of getting our tourism back, hosting large-scale events, conventions in the city of New Orleans. And all that we've managed just throughout this year thus far, again, we should be proud in touting it. Because you know what? We're seeing the accolades come our way around the globe. And again, it's something we cannot deny. It's something that we should embrace and appreciate. At a time, again, when we're working harder than ever to boost our tourism stats, as well as our economy here in the city of New Orleans, we're getting the accolades. This week, National Travel and Tourism Week, this week here, I wanted to highlight just a couple of recent accolades. One, Wanderlust Travel Awards, Most Desirable City, citing distinctive vibrancy, music scene, of course, our cuisine and events. MSY named Best Airport in North America with 5 to 15 million passengers annually. Again, something we should be proud of. And I will not rest until I get a full activation of NASA in that airport, because I believe we have to tout our strengths and being at the center not only of climate change, but at the center of STEM, science, math, innovation, engineering, technology right here in the city of New Orleans. Space shuttle going to Mars built right here in the city of New Orleans. New Orleans was the only two cities recommended, again, as it relates to a Foreign magazine, with the top 10 places in the world to travel in April. And we know that was also connected to Jazz Fest in the city. The Port of New Orleans set a passenger record in March of 2023 for ocean-going and river cruises, again, trending in the right direction, topping pre-pandemic levels with over 155,000 passenger movements and 39 cruise vessel calls at the port for the month of March. This is huge. Going a little bit deeper, TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice, Best Food Destination, Hemisphere Magazine, Reader's Choice, Jazz and Heritage Festival, again named the best cultural festival. But here's the best that I love. I would say I love the most right now. Speaking to our economy, fastest growing city for jobs in the United States of America. This also speaks to one of our most recent announcements with United Utility moving their headquarters from North Carolina to the city of New Orleans, to the heart of our downtown. Progress that we should not deny, and we will not. Code enforcement. As of May 1st, code enforcement has completed over 49 demolitions so far this year, with many more to come. 3 in District A, 8 in District B, 13 in District C, 16 in District D, and 9 in District E. In the first quarter of 2023, 314 properties were brought to hearings, totaling about $1.7 million in revenue generated from fines, liens on these particular properties. This further proves, again, that the city is doing what it takes and being more aggressive relative to code enforcement, which also speaks to the influx of resources that we were able to allocate towards code enforcement, and something that we haven't seen in decades in the city of New Orleans, $10 million there. This week, code enforcement will begin demolishing 5501, 5505 Bundy Road in New Orleans East. One of the city's priority blighted properties, I'm telling you, definitely would have made the top 12 of our list that I mentioned, and we're working that list and soon to come to you. But this Bundy Road site, 40-acre site, used to be a condominium complex, but all right now remains is concrete slab, overgrown vegetation, and of course junk and debris. This will all be removed, and something that has been a long time coming for the residents in New Orleans East. And of course, a hot spot for criminal activity, which has put this on our list in terms of the Violent Crime Reduction Task Force. Stripping stolen cars was even in this particular area. Also, we have seen, as mentioned on last week, just challenges associated with one of the largest and oldest blighted properties in the city of New Orleans, and we know that that is Plaza Tower. And although this has been a massive and dangerous eyesore for decades, this site just continues to be one priority that the administration is looking at. We know that it has severely declined over the last 8 years, and that's why we have just been set on making sure that we get some resolve here, solutions as it relates to the future of this site. We know, just looking at past experiences, code enforcement performed an inspection there, 2015, 5 violations. I know that had everything to do with when I was a council member focusing on Plaza Tower, which then shifted it to being sold. But again, it did not resolve the issues that we're facing now. Although with asbestos removal happening, we're still faced with the challenge of this declining site. Code enforcement did bring the Plaza Tower to a hearing in November of 2021, received 11 guilty findings from a hearing officer, and just wanted to just kind of highlight that the case was appealed to Civil District Court, putting the process on hold. These are just things that we have to factor in as we take action. We are taking action. I reported on last week that the ownership, of course, has put that building up for sale, was looking for full complements of respondents to that sale. I know that over 6 bids were received, or respondents were received, and out of that, it's shaking loose that there are 2 strong, viable options to purchase Plaza Tower, and with the resources, meaning the checkbook, to bring some resolve. But again, the city doesn't own the property. The city is working with the owner to push for resolve, and of course, what he has right now on the table are 2 viable options, and I'm told by the owner as of yesterday, wanting to issue a letter of intent, meaning to receive a letter of intent for that property. And so, we'll continue to move along every single day. We're engaged with the property, assessments, and the like. But again, it will take a holistic approach to deal with the onion of challenges associated with this particular site. And if you know development, you also know that when you pull one string, the whole deal can fall apart. So it's very important that we work in alignment and be on the same page relative to this particular site. But again, I focused on demolition. That's been on the table as well. It's not off the table, but what is on the table? All the challenges that are associated with any step that we take, and we're going to work them through. One thing that has been proven by my team, by my administration, by myself, we do not shy away from challenges. We face them to fix them, but in a concerted effort that focuses on solutions. I did want to mention, just give me a minute before we turn to John, before I turn to you. I did want to mention, though, the rain event we did have on yesterday, Tuesday. Again, what we're seeing, rainfall coming, heavier amounts, shorter periods of time, and what we do know, too much too soon, we will see localized flooding. No doubt about that. What we did see, parts of Lakeview, 4.82 inches at pumping station number 7. That was near Marconi Drive at I-10, at I-610. 3.84 inches of rain at pumping station number 6 near Metairie Road, and 2.9 inches of rain near pumping station number 12. And what was also noted was that there was about one of our stations tripped off as it relates to, I believe it was an hour, tripped offline for an hour around pumping station number 12. And so right around 5 p.m. is when it tripped offline, and for about an hour, again, it was off. But this was during the time of elevation relative to the canal, meaning very low, enough to continue draining and, again, retaining water that we were receiving due to rainfall. And I also just wanted to mention, since August of 21, DPW has flushed over 10,984 manhole catch basins throughout the city, and also has flushed over 369,000 linear feet of lateral lines relative to our main lines that are connected. So with that, John, I'm going to take a drink of water, and we'll get to Q&A.
Starting with Fox 8.
Hi, Mayor. I just want to go back to Plaza Tower really quick. It's a 2-part question. Can you speak on the NOFD operation there this morning? What was involved in that? And then also, I know tomorrow, Councilmembers Morrell and Harris are going to be putting forward motions One motion to fine the property owners for code violations daily until the issues are resolved. Another one directing code enforcement to adjudicate hearings to assess street closure costs relative to Plaza Tower. So I want to get your reaction to those motions and the details on that.
So as it relates to the New Orleans Fire Department, they're doing what they do. Thoroughly assessing the site, making sure it's all around and relative to safety measures as it relates to Plaza Tower. It's ongoing. It needs to be. It's just that serious, and we will continue to do just that. Relative to the motions, I think you just mentioned, they're motions drafted by these council members. What I do know is that the owner of Plaza Tower did reach out and asked that the motions be deferred because it is causing problems in the middle of negotiations with extremely viable options relative to the purchase of Plaza Tower. What I do know is that those motions will not bring forth a solution to what we're dealing with right now. I'm solution-focused, solution-driven, not for things that will remove us or take us further from solving the problem that we have with Plaza Tower that has been one for decades.
And those two viable options that you had these conversations with the owners of the property, are these viable options for redevelopment or for demolition?
These are viable options for redevelopment.
Vicky Gino, do you have a question?
Just with hurricane season coming up, Mayor, what do you want to urge to residents when it does rain, when it does flood? What do you want them to know and pay attention to most?
Well, what I want people to understand, and as we always talk about being on the front lines of climate change that has already changed, is to do our part, making sure that we're cleaning our catch basins, drains, in front of our homes, around our neighborhoods, looking at how water is impacting your own private property. Collecting water on site only helps it from going into our drains. And so we all have a responsibility, and again, looking at our private property to see how we can hold rain gardens, rain barrels. These are things and initiatives that the city itself we're funding, and along with our partners that are focusing on flood mitigation practices throughout the city. Of course, having a plan, what we have seen, in particular due to hurricane season, that these storms come fast. We do not have time relative to initiating a contraflow or an evacuation plan because at hour 72 or at hour 70, there are no threats. But we see the threat at hour 15 and at hour 12. So it means that we really do have to focus on a plan and having a plan, meaning individuals having a plan to shelter in place, staying tuned into things that come from Homeland Security, making sure they sign up for NOLA Ready alerts, 777-295, 77295, text NOLA Ready. This has been a proven resource to residents that really has come from them. This is the number one trusted source for information during hurricane season that our residents have indicated. And really, at any time of crises, NOLA Ready, 77295, please text, because the real-time updates, they do matter. We also, want to encourage residents to just be prepared. Make sure that they know their neighbors, check in with their neighbors, where pets are in their community, things that you can do ahead of a storm. Get familiar with your rec centers because we do know that now, because of lessons learned, that NORD is now embedded heavily in our emergency response plans. So get familiar. And with your plans, with our plans, and of course, take action with how we can just minimize flooding due to rainwater throughout our city.
Thank you.
Lydia, is she?
I have 3 questions. First, following up on David, some city council members have said, and residents have said, there's been nothing done about the tower. Your reaction to that, and then again, talking about the flooding, a lot of residents talking about issues with the catch basins. Do you know how many crews you have to clean those up, and were they cleaned out yesterday? And then I want to talk about, of course, car burglaries and break-ins. Tomorrow, the House is set to vote on a bill that would make jail time mandatory if you get caught with this crime? Where do you stand on this bill, especially, this is overtaking our community?
So the first question you asked was on Plaza Tower and about nothing being done. Clearly, what I've articulated are steps and things that have been done by the city of New Orleans and consistently. What I would like to say, and really being a former council member myself, and particularly of District B, I haven't seen any action from the council member at all, and engagement with the property owner at all. This is something that I take very seriously. I've done that job 6 years as a council member in that seat, that then moved from that seat to the mayor's chair. So what I would urge, work with the city, work with even the ownership to bring forth solutions that will change the existing conditions of Plaza Tower. Plaza Tower has been blighted since I know. Coming here in 1990, over 30 years, I remember this building very well. And I also remember that it's been there, and action taken has been under my leadership, one as a council member and now as the mayor of the city of New Orleans, and we will continue on that path and that trajectory. Relative to catch basins are cleaned routinely, and especially in preparation for hurricane season. If you want to know the exact number of trucks that are on the street, I'll get you that information after this press conference. Car break-ins, I'm looking at my notes. You asked about legislation that's moving through that would guarantee jail time. Tell me about it.
Yeah, if you get caught for car break-ins, multiple times, or a simple car burglary, jail time would be mandatory. So where do you stand on that? The House votes on that tomorrow.
Well, I don't know how much jail time you're talking, so I'm not going to give you feedback on that until I learn just a little bit more, because I have some questions. When you mean jail time, what does that mean? How long? I'm really interested in that.
Okay. Maybe we'll send a question and email to you.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
The advocate?
Yeah, Mayor, again, on Plaza Tower, just given what you know about these two proposals,
Mm-hmm.
do you think they're actually realistic and that they could actually redevelop this tower?
What I do know, well, given the state, given the state that it's in, and as I mentioned, it going to a sale and being purchased doesn't take away the existing conditions. However, when you do have two viable, strong alternatives, meaning the options come with the resources necessary to trigger a redevelopment. That's what I do know. If done appropriately and effectively with stabilization and moving very quickly into design, then moving very quickly into construction, then yes, I do believe it is a viable option. I've been involved in developments over time. We have multiple going on in the city of New Orleans now. Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that leadership from one decade to the next really has wanted to redevelop Plaza Tower. We know that it is a historic site. We know that right now it qualifies for historic tax credits, both at the state and the federal level. It is one of those sites, much like we talked about the World Trade Center, in terms of being historic. If it can be redeveloped, great. I think it's a great thing for the city of New Orleans. However, if it cannot be, then I am on the side of demolition.
Axios New Orleans, do you have a question?
Hi, yeah, two questions. So the two viable offers for Plaza Tower, are those local offers or outside?
I am not able to give you that information. I am not the owner, and I do not want to jeopardize negotiations that are in good faith by ownership and these viable candidates. Yeah, not in good taste.
Okay. And the Bundy Road demolition, can you tell me more about that?
Yes, ma'am.
And what the timeline is?
So-
Budget and paying for it?
Well, we're paying for it, the city of New Orleans. We're paying for it, and, like we do when we do have to go in and demo, we place the lien on the property itself. So if the property is transferred, then that protects, in some cases, the city with getting our money back. In some cases, it's just kind of like monopoly. You know, we won't get it back, but the return on that investment of getting the trash out of our people's eyes, demonstrating that the city is serious about code enforcement, but also aggressive about cleaning up and attracting viable redevelopment and growing our economy, I think is where we stand with that, which makes it a priority for us. We're looking at this happening this week. And it will be dealing with the concrete slab, the overgrown vegetation. I talked about debris and junk, embedded. This is a 40-acre site. It's huge, but I do believe it will send a great message and also attract the type of development that we're looking to come and leverage against what we're seeing in New Orleans East.
Thank you all.
Is there a budget for that?
A budget for?
For how much the demolition is?
Oh, I'll get you that. We'll get you the exact, because it changes from site to site, but we'll get you that information. And thank you so much. All right.